Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Brutal Commentary. Hey, it's been a while, since I've done one of these videos, but now that we're rolling late into January of 2026, Fight Week is starting up. More specifically, next week will be Fight Week with UFC 324, Gaethje versus Pimblett, but there's also going to be some other events coming in next week. Next Friday, there will also be one Fight Night 39, the first major card of one championship, which I will be taking a look at as well. But also, we will have the first Zuffa boxing event next Friday as well. This will be taking place at the new Meta Apex. No longer the UFC Apex. They've renamed it to the Meta. So take that one as you will. It just basically means, I guess, it can hold some more people and whatnot. But now they'll be doing the Contender Series on it, Zuffa boxing events, and I believe some other fights as well, like some of their quote-unquote now Meta Apex Fight Nights. But still, with that being said, we are back in action, Brutal Commentary fans. So without further ado, I'm going to specifically be breaking down the main event for the first Zuffa boxing event of 2026. This will take place next Friday, January 23rd, titled Z01. I guess you could say it's the first Zuffa boxing event, or first time it as a sort of organization or league. Take it for what you will. I could say the first card was technically Canelo Crawford, but it does not matter. So for the main event, though, we have Callum Walsh taking on Carlos Ocampo. This is more or less going to be a crossroads, as Walsh, very young, 24 years old. He'll be 25 next month. Only 15-0, so he's pretty young in his boxing career. Taking on Ocampo, who is 38-3. He, as a professional, been in the two much longer. He's going to be 6 years. His Walsh's senior here at age 30. In his prime, mind you, he's not some old gun. He is in his prime. So it is kind of the perfect test for Callum Walsh, you could say, as this isn't a fight built on some unpredictable factor or chaos. It's a fight built on two contrasting styles. Those two very clear identities, two very clear intentions, and a matchup that clearly comes down to whether control can consistently shut down pressure. Also, the big reason why Callum Walsh is headlining it is that he seems to be one of Dana's boys. I don't know what it is specifically. Maybe it's because he's Irish. But Dana White has always been seemingly a fan of Callum Walsh, or at the very least, he's been covering in Walsh's career, if you've seen on the UFC's YouTube channel. But without further ado, let's get down to the breakdown. It's good to be back. So looking at Callum Walsh, he's still very early in his professional career, as I've said, only 15-0. But even at this stage, you can clearly see the outlier of the fighter he's trying to become. He is a tall southpaw who values structure above all else. Everything he does is designed around distance and balance and timing. Walsh doesn't rush exchanges, and he doesn't really fight with a sense of urgency. And by what I mean is he doesn't rush for the finish and possibly gas himself out. Instead, he works behind a steady lead hand, that being his right hand, takes small, efficient steps, and looks to create clean lanes for that left hand of his, which is probably his money shot for sure. In terms of his offense, Walsh is very methodical. He isn't throwing to overwhelm opponents with volume, but to draw out reactions. More of a counter striker in that sense. And you'll often see him probe with his lead right hand, wait for a response, and then commit only when the opening is clear. Very similar very simple boxing tactics. Lead off with the lead hand. Like I said, he's in southpaw, so his right hand's in front. Fire off a few jabs, wait for his opponent to fire back, find the opening, and then crack him with the, in this case, left counter. Walsh's punches are very straight. They're very compact, and they're thrown with his feet under him. He's not going to overthrow some of his punches where, like, literally his upper half is far, how do I want to say this, is, in further distance than his lower half, or, just overcommitting, basically what I'm trying to say. And which does allow Walsh to exit quickly after finishing his exchanges. Like, say, if he fires off a jab cross, he can move out of the way. And that balance is one of his biggest strengths. Walsh rarely looks out of position, and that makes him very difficult to counter clean. And on the cleanly. And on the defensive side, Walsh relies more on spacing than flash. Not really much of a head mover, I would say, or in terms of like those dramatic head movements. You see some more fun fighters like Ben Whitaker. Walsh trusts his range control, his posture, and his ability to reset rather than slip and roll excessively. His head movement is subtle but effective, and it's paired with footwork that prioritizes angles over retreating in a straight line. And when he's disciplined, opponents are forced to cross distance before they can land. And that's usually where Walsh does his best work. Now, looking at the opposite end of the spectrum, you have Carlos Ocampo. Where Walsh is controlled and patient, Ocampo is very assertive and pressure forward. Ocampo is a fighter who wants to be in front of you, wants to stay busy, and wants to make exchanges uncomfortable. His style is less about clean lines and more about persistence, as he's willing to throw in volume, even if the shots aren't perfect, because his goal is to keep opponents under constant duress. So most of it with Ocampo, Ocampo fights when he fights at his best when he can shorten the distance and turn the fight into a series of continuous exchanges. As he throws looping hooks, body shots, and combinations that are meant to wear opponents down rather than win a single moment. Now, he's not particularly concerned about defensive aesthetics. He accepts risk if it means staying close enough to work. And one of Campo's defining traits is his willingness to absorb shots to give shots. Take one to give one, that kind of stuff. He doesn't get discouraged usually, and he doesn't slow down just because he's been hit clean. And against fighters who panic, overreact, or can lose their composure pretty quickly under pressure, that approach can be very effective. Now, if an opponent starts backing up in a straight line or trading unnecessarily, Ocampo is very good at capitalizing on that. But that same approach also creates openings because Ocampo prioritizes forward movement over positioning, and his entries can be very predictable, as his head often stays on the center line, and his defenses on the way in isn't always the best nor layered. He doesn't necessarily always move with good head movement or parrying with his hands. It's more of a tight guard and move in a straight line. And against a fighter who throws straight punches and maintains discipline, those habits can be exploited repeatedly. So that's where the stylistic clash becomes clear. Walsh wants space and time. Ocampo wants proximity and fights with more urgency. Walsh wants the fight to unfold more so in phases, is like from distance, mid-range, and then in close quarters. More of there's an answer to every range this fight has, while Ocampo just wants it to be continuous, never stopping at just random moments in the exchange, but continuously going on and on until he wears down Walsh and finds the opening. The key question is whether Walsh can consistently impose his preferred structure or whether Ocampo can force him into extended exchanges. So I feel like if Walsh is able to establish range early, the fight's going to heavily tilt in his favor. His southpaw stance alone creates problems for a pressure fighter, especially one who doesn't make consistent adjustments with foot positioning. And if Walsh steps outside Campo's lead foot, his opening, it opens up the angles for his left hand while simultaneously moving off the line of fire. That single detail can dictate entire rounds or even lead to the finish. Important factor, I should say, is Walsh use of the lead hand. Even when it's not landing cleanly, it serves a purpose. It disrupts timing, obscures vision, and forces Ocampo to hesitate on his entries. And against a pressure fighter, hesitation is costly. Every moment spent resetting is a moment where the pressure loses its efficiency. So Ocampo's success depends largely on his ability to trap Walsh if he can back him towards the ropes or the turnbuckle and limit lateral movement. The dynamic changes. That's where Ocampo's bodywork and volume can become meaningful. He doesn't need to land perfectly. He just needs to make Walsh work, force him to defend multiple shots and sequences, and test his willingness to stay composed. But composure is one of Walsh's defining traits, and he doesn't fight emotionally. He doesn't feel the need to match intensity for intensity's sake. When he hits, he resets. When pressure comes, Walsh looks to reposition rather than trade. That mindset is crucial against someone like Ocampo, who thrives on drawing opponents into fights that don't need to be had. And so as the round progresses, as if efficiency starts to separate the two. So overall, I gotta go with Callum Walsh here. I think this ultimately feels like a fight where structure has the advantage over urgency. Ocampo is durable, willing, and very persistent, but those qualities don't always solve technical problems. And Walsh's ability to control range, dictate the pace, and land the cleaner shots should allow him to manage most of the fight. There will be moments where Ocampo pushes forward and creates pressure, but over time, I think Walsh's composure and accuracy should separate them. Whether it ends in a late stoppage or a clear decision depends on how much damage accumulates, but the overall trajectory, I think, points towards one way. I'm going to pick Callum Walsh here, and I'm going to pick him, I'd say probably decision. And he does, Ocampo doesn't get knocked out that much. He got knocked out like 2.5 years ago against Tim Tsuya. And as of recent, Walsh has been mostly decisions, or at least his last fight was a decision against Fernando Vargas Jr. No, I don't know, man. Maybe Walsh could land the knockout shot. He is a pretty good knockout artist, but we'll see. At the end of the day, I am going to pick Callum Walsh here to win by a controlled technical performance. But with that being said, that's been my breakdown of this fight. If you enjoyed the video, like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below. I hope you all enjoyed the first breakdown of 2026, and there will be more to come, especially next week when I'll be breaking down the whole card of UFC 324. But until then, I've been Bo from Brutal Commentary. Stay calm, stay respectful, and enjoy the violence. I hope you all enjoyed. I'll see you next time.